buy luxury-type automobiles usually have a pretty good idea of what they expect to get for their money. They want up-to-date styling, with distinctive appearance both outside and inside the car. They want better-than-average performance, the best riding quality and handling ease, extra roominess, luxurious convenience, and, of course, the utmost in safety and dependability. But how can the fine car buyer be sure he's getting the most for his money in every one of the fine car qualities we've just mentioned? If he's been sticking with a certain make purely from habit, he'll never know for sure. If he buys a certain make just because a friend or neighbor recommended it, he could be misled, unintentionally, of course, because you see there's more than one make to choose from in the fine car field. Only by making a side-by-side comparison can the buyer who wants the finest be sure he's making the wisest choice. So let's make a side-by-side comparison of two cars that are priced within a few dollars of each other, Imperial and Cadillac. Let's take a look through the eyes of an independent automotive organization whose business it is to find out whether cars are any different. Take appearance, for example. Tastes are different with different people, and styling, after all, is really a matter of personal opinion. So let's take a walk around Imperial and Cadillac, beginning with a look at the front of both cars. Lowness is one thing that's news for 1957, and notice that Imperial is 2.5 inches lower. Which do you think is better looking? And here's a side view. The Imperial is 8 inches longer. Which car do you think is newer looking? Which do you think is better looking? Now compare the going-away look of these cars. Which is newer looking? Which do you like the better? Here are just a few of Imperial's styling highlights that are news. Here's a compound windshield that wraps around at the top as well as the sides. Here's the exclusive and distinctive Lando-type roof treatment. Here are new dual headlights, available as optional equipment, but not available on Cadillac at all. And here is curved side window glass, an industry-wide first for Imperial. Cadillac has nothing to match these. From the inside, both cars appear tastefully trimmed in keeping with fine car quality. Although here, too, we find styling news by Imperial in details like those airplane-type door handles. Now, let's go out to the Chrysler Engineering Proving Grounds about 75 miles outside Detroit, where automotive experts have recently conducted intensive road tests of Imperial and Cadillac. The New Yorker was included in many of these tests for information on how it compared. The test crew discovered a lot of very interesting facts that prove there are differences in these cars when you take them out on the road. Before any road tests were made, all cars were carefully tuned to factory specifications by expert mechanics. Professional test drivers were used, and all tests were supervised by independent automotive engineers. These men leaned over backward to assure absolute fairness and accuracy. Now, if there's one thing luxury car buyers expect, it's an outstanding ride, not only on the boulevard, but also when the going gets a bit rough. I don't think anyone here would say that Cadillac is a bad riding car, but there are differences when you compare it with Imperial. Here's what you might call a typical country railroad crossing. Doesn't look very tough, does it? Wouldn't you say a car ought to be able to go over this crossing at about 30 miles an hour without too much trouble? Let's see how Imperial and Cadillac behaved. Here, Imperial and Cadillac crossed the tracks at 30 miles an hour. These pictures were taken by a special rapid sequence camera that can take up to 20 exposures per second. Not much happening here, is there? Now look. The road makes the front ends want to dive and the rear ends want to jump. But where Imperial's torsionaire suspension keeps full control of the action, the Cadillac suspension lets the rear wheels leave the ground. Now Cadillac's rear end has to go down as springs flex in the other direction. Shock absorbers are powerless to stop this reaction, and so it bottoms with a thump. But since Imperial didn't go up in the first place, it stays almost perfectly level. Can you imagine how passengers would feel in the Cadillac? another car length, and Cadillac still can't control body pitching. This second reaction is almost as severe as the first one. Rear wheels again are off the ground, front end nose diving. Compare this with Imperial's position at the same point in the road. Almost unbelievable, isn't it? When you think that these cars are traveling at the same speed. As the cars go almost out of camera range, you can see Cadillac still seesawing, with the rear end down again. It took another 50 feet of travel before Cadillac leveled out completely. Imperial had no trouble at any time in maintaining complete control of body movement. Don't you agree that this test shows a difference in ride? In case you're wondering how the New Yorker rides, here are the same views of its crossing on the tracks. Just over the tracks where the road dips downward, maintaining perfect control, and traveling at the same speed, 30 miles per hour, all the way out of the picture, and still as level as you'd want it to be. Wouldn't you say that Torsionaire Ride does a pretty good job of meeting luxury car standards of ride control? But this is only part of the story of what Torsionaire does. Let's look at some tests for lean on curbs. This view shows the flat paved surface where a circle, 180 feet in diameter, was laid out. On the hood of each car, a white bar was mounted vertically and checked with a carpenter's level. Then the cars were driven around the circular course at 20 miles an hour. All were photographed as they approached the camera crew. Here is the comparison, with the white bar on each hood showing the amount of lean. There is a difference, isn't there? True, it's only a few degrees. The Imperial leans 2 degrees, the Cadillac 4 degrees. That's a difference of 100%. Certainly enough to be noticed inside the cars. Incidentally, this turning radius of 90 feet is about equal to what you'd have when you turn into a wide street. Now, let's move along to another test of riding comfort. Here, engineers are getting ready to measure the amount of rear-end squat that takes place with a quick start. The cars are being fitted with white bars fastened parallel with rear bumpers. The bar on each bumper is exactly the same height above the road surface. At the top, Imperial and Cadillac are ready for the go signal. At the bottom, drivers floorboard accelerator pedals in a fast start. Wouldn't you say there was a difference in squat? Now let's see how New Yorker and Cadillac compare. Here they are, in the same kind of test setup you just saw. And New Yorker has just about the same advantage the Imperial had over Cadillac in the amount of rear-end squat. Here's something that, up to this year, nobody's done much about. It's the annoying nose dive that throws you forward as you make a quick stop. Besides being uncomfortable, the nose dive is the reason why a lot of cars lock bumpers when the car in front stops suddenly. When the front end dives, the front bumper of the car can slip under the rear bumper of the car ahead. For 1957, something has been done about brake dive. Torsionaire Ride in Imperial and New Yorker takes out 85% of it. Cadillac claims it has no front-end dive, even in emergency stops. So let's test to see if there is a difference. At the top, Imperial and Cadillac are traveling at 50 miles an hour when they get the flagman signal to hit the brakes hard. At the bottom, you see the reaction as brakes take hold. Can you see any difference in brake dive? Who has eliminated more of it? This test was run several times, and each time the result was the same. Now, if the operator will turn the record, we'll see some more test results. Before we leave the subject of ride, there's one more thing that should be mentioned, and that is tires, because tires have a lot to do with ride. For 1957, Imperial and New Yorker have new 14-inch super soft cushion tires. Cadillac uses the same 15-inch tire it had last year. Matter of fact, the Imperial tire is 950 by 14. The New Yorker tire is 900 by 14, and the Cadillac only 820 by 15. The pictures show the difference. The Imperial tire soaks up bumps better because it has a larger cross-section, which provides a larger volume of air, and it's a quieter tire, too. Notice the difference when the Chrysler and Cadillac tires are driven over an obstruction. You can see how the Chrysler tire absorbs the shock. Tire tread stays in contact with the road. So much for ride. Now let's look at performance. This is the start of a 0 to 60 mile an hour acceleration test. The Imperial, New Yorker, and Cadillac are lined up ready for the go signal. Engines are idling, transmissions in drive range, and drivers are holding brake pedals. When the flag drops, the drivers release the brakes and floorboard the accelerators. There they go, with the New Yorker jumping into a lead, followed by Imperial, with Cadillac last. Here's how they looked at 30 miles an hour. The New Yorker is pulling away and opening up quite a lead on the other cars. Just for the record, the New Yorker, which is the fastest stock car built in volume today, was doing 60 at this point and still going away. Imperial has a good two-car length lead over Cadillac. This shows a difference in getaway acceleration, doesn't it? Next was a test to compare safe passing ability on the highway. Here you see New Yorker, Imperial, and Cadillac approaching the flagman on even terms at 30 miles an hour. When the flag drops, all drivers downshift and hold accelerator pedals to the floor to simulate passing acceleration. New Yorker and Imperial both jump ahead of Cadillac. Here you can see that both the New Yorker and Imperial could have safely passed Cadillac and pulled back in line, even though all cars started on even terms. In this picture, New Yorker is traveling about 70. Wouldn't you say that there was quite a difference in safe highway passing ability between Cadillac and the other two cars? Imperial and New Yorker have a bigger engine than Cadillac, with 25 more horsepower and 30 pound-feet more torque. That's one reason for the difference in performance. And Chrysler Torque Flight has a maximum breakaway ratio of 5.63, which gives it a healthy advantage over the Cadillac hydromatic breakaway ratio of 3.97. That's another reason for the difference in performance. Of course, Imperial also offers the convenience of push-button range selection. Cadillac has the usual selector lever. With all this information on performance, you're probably wondering about fuel economy. This was checked by a fuel consumption gauge along with a fifth wheel and electronic speedometer. The engines of all three cars were tuned, of course. Now, fuel economy depends on driving habits. If you like fast starts, naturally you burn more fuel. Take it easy, and you use less. So the only accurate way to compare fuel economy is to drive at a steady speed and eliminate stop-and-go driving. That's the way this test was run. Each car was driven at steady speeds from 20 to 70, and fuel consumption checked for each speed. Here's the way it came out with a 500-pound load added to each car. The New Yorker averaged best, with 17 and 8/10 miles per gallon. Imperial and Cadillac averaged almost the same, with Imperial better at 50 to 60 cruising speeds. Cadillac had the edge at lower speeds. Engineers say that the steady 70-mile-an-hour fuel consumption figure is about what the cars would get in city traffic driving. What goes must stop. So let's take a look at stopping power. Are there any differences here? For this comparison, only Imperial and Cadillac were used since they weigh nearly the same. To check stopping ability under the worst conditions, a test was made on wet pavement using an airport runway as the straightaway. Here you see Imperial and Cadillac traveling at 40 miles an hour, side by side, toward the flagman who will signal for a quick stop. The flag goes down, and so do brake pedals, hard, as drivers try to stop in the shortest possible distance. The cars have almost stopped, and Imperial, with its total contact brakes and its extra wide tread, is doing it sooner. Notice the brake dive on the Cadillac. Here they are at a dead stop, with Imperial about 1.5 car lengths better than Cadillac. After 4 tests like this, the results were still the same. Wouldn't you feel safer in an Imperial with this extra safe stopping distance? Now, the test cars had power steering as standard equipment, so we tested to see if there is a difference in the amount of steering help they provide. To find out, the Imperial and Cadillac were compared. since they were closest in road weight. Here is a steering effort wheel fastened to the Cadillac steering wheel. It measures the pounds of effort used by the driver in steering the car through a turn. The cars traveled at a constant 40 miles an hour. The 4-mile course is built like a typical secondary road. It includes 11 different turns. The amount of work needed to turn the car through each turn was logged by an assistant seated beside the driver. Then the Imperial and New Yorker were given the same test at the same 40-mile speed using the steering effort wheel to make every turn. Here are the results. For the 11 turns, New Yorker required 37 1/10 pounds of steering effort, and Imperial required 40 1/2 pounds. Cadillac required a total steering effort of 70 1/2 pounds. Think how much difference this would mean on an all-day drive. Wouldn't you say the difference is worth knowing about? What's more, with Chrysler full-time power steering, you have a consistent feel of the road because the power steering unit is working full-time. With Cadillac, power steering cuts on and off, so feel of the road changes as the amount of steering wheel pull changes. Test drivers remarked about the difference in visibility through the Imperial and Cadillac windshields. These pictures were taken from the driver's eye level with a special wide-angle camera. The dotted line on the Imperial windshield shows the outline of the Cadillac windshield. Imperial's double wraparound windshield and swept-back corner posts do make a difference, don't they? Defrosters have a lot to do with good visibility in bad weather. Imperial's adjustable defroster jets defrost first where you need it most. Cadillac's fixed defroster slots work from the bottom up. They take longer to clear the important eye-level area. And Imperial's windshield wiper blade is 16 inches long. Cadillac's is 13 inches. This does make a difference in bad weather visibility. Notice the difference in usable trunk space. Imperial is 32 inches deeper and 20 inches wider. This is something the luxury-type car owner appreciates. A really spacious, convenient-to-use luggage compartment. Compare the flat space you can use. Notice how cut up Cadillac's is? And here's something else the luxury car buyer might want to know. Imperial has its own exclusive body, shared with no other make. Cadillac's body shell is shared by 2 Buick models, the Super and Roadmaster. So Imperial is certainly the more individual and distinctive when compared with Cadillac. And here's another point that's important to a luxury car buyer. Every Imperial is road tested at the factory. Only a certain percentage of Cadillacs are checked this way. So there you have it. Cadillac isn't a bad car, but there are differences that should be important to buyers who want the best. And while you may not want to duplicate the road test shown in this film, a demonstration will indicate the important advantages Chrysler and Imperial have over other cars.